Hey, so it is Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So we are doing the second session of the Getting to Know Your Pit Bull webinar. Let me turn this off so that I don't drive myself crazy. All right, so we're just going to get started in just a minute. Tonight, we are going to be covering some new material. So last time we talked about a lot of the different controversies of what is a pit bull versus a bully breed, and is it an umbrella term or is it a very specific type of a breed? And then we got into some of the history. And so I have a little bit of a little bit of an update with regards to one of the questions that was asked last time as well. So this week we are going to be talking about pit bull behavior. Oh, there we go. Let's get to the right slide. And so pit bull behavior, it's going to be very focused on all things pit bulls. So while there is that controversy with regards to the different breeds, I am, for the purposes of this evening, going to be using it as an umbrella term just for easier talking purposes. So I am going to go ahead and get started. So I would like to introduce my lovely assistant again, Cheyenne Smith. So she's also a certified professional dog trainer. I gotta remember that I'm supposed to be clicking on this computer. Okay, so just to recap, I'm going to cover the same couple of slides again, just in case we catch anybody new. So my name is Stephanie Amaro, and I am the owner and trainer behind Clever Canines Dog Training. So I am a certified pro dog trainer through Absolute Dogs, and so what that means is I focus on in what's called concepts training as well as games-based training, which is positive reinforcement rewards-based methods. And I'm based out of Crownsville, Maryland, not far from Baltimore. And Cheyenne here is based out of West Virginia, just across the border. I think I got that right this time. Okay, and so more importantly about me, so I am incredibly passionate about dogs and rescue dogs, and there's a very special place in my heart just for pit bulls. And so I think it's incredibly important that we focus on all things relating to behavior for pit bulls, especially since here in the United States, pit bulls and bully breeds are some of the most common dogs that you will find, especially in shelters, and they tend to be euthanized the most. So I believe they are all deserving of a chance for happiness, and the best way that I can help with that is to teach owners how to best work with their pit bulls and how to best live with them. So here we go. And so if you are just joining us, feel free to jump in the chat, introduce yourself, and tell me about your dog. So disclaimers, I'm going to give the same disclaimers as last time. I'm going to be talking about controversial topics, not so much today, but there will be some going forward. And so I do ask that everyone that joins have an open mind and be open to thoughtful debate. It's okay to disagree with each other. It's okay to disagree with me. Name calling and bullying is not okay. So whenever possible, just definitely try to think of other people's feelings and engage in thoughtful debate. And so this series is not a replacement for professional training. I am not going to be covering super complex training scenarios. This is not the place for separation anxiety. This is not the place for serious aggression issues. This is going to be more of a primer and more fundamental concepts. So I am not able to cover all the very complex things because that would require the development of a full course and all of that. Oops, wrong one. I'm going to hide you so that you don't have to worry too much there, Cheyenne. There we go. All right. And so last thing, try to have fun. I try to make things funny. I can't help myself. Sometimes I think I'm hysterical, whether I am or not. Okay. This screen. I'm going to learn this technology stuff. Cheyenne's laughing at me. I can see you giggling at the bottom. Okay, so pit bulls, they are some of the most lively dogs out there. They have a thirst for life that you will find in no other breed. They're incredibly outgoing. They tend to be over enthusiastic. They like to jump at people. They might do some mouthing. They're quicker to roughhouse. And they have this all or nothing type of zest for life. So sometimes you'll notice that they'll be so excited that they can't control themselves, which can then lead to destructive behavior, overexcitability, reactivity, and aggression. And so they're incredibly affectionate and loyal. So that means you may have an involuntary bathroom buddy. You will not spend any time alone. I have seen countless pictures of pit bulls laying in their parents' underwear as they were sitting in the bathroom because they didn't want to be alone. They may be protective of one or more family members towards people or even other animals in the house. They're very social animals. They want to stay by their family and by their pack. And they're incredibly powerful. They are essentially the Hulk. No, I would go one step further. They're like The Rock if The Rock actually would take some roids. So like they're so excitable and they're very good natured, but sometimes they just cannot contain themselves. And so what that looks like could potentially be very dangerous. And so it's great to know how best to handle them. So Cheyenne, I want to do a quick test since you're not in the stream. See if you can talk just in case. Yeah, I can't. Okay.
No.
So
okay.
And you can do your video off.
If I have to say something, I'll just jump up and down.
Okay. I'll try to stop talking.
Okay.
All right. So something to keep in mind is these dogs are both bulldogs and they are terriers. These are two very challenging breeds for different reasons. So bulldogs have that really affectionate, outgoing, enthusiastic type of personalities. And so they're great. They love to run. They love to move and be excitable. And they really love to play tug and live life through their mouths and just grab the crap out of something and just shake the hell out of it. Now, terriers, they tend to be more independent instead of that social aspect like we had with pit bulls. And they're hyperactive. They're always ready, always on the go. They like to chase after small vermin, so rats and things like that. And they love to play chase. Now, overlapping the two, so with something like a pit bull terrier, they can be very predatory because of these two sides. They can have a one-track mind. So if they want to play with something, or if they want to get into the garbage, they can get into the garbage. So it's a matter of setting them up for success. They are tenacious, so they will just keep going, athletic, intelligent, incredibly intelligent, cunning, and so they love to shred stuff because of both sides of the breeds. Now, as far as intelligence, so I had a pit bull, and I swear she could sprout opposable thumbs just whenever I wasn't paying attention. So I actually caught her getting into the garbage, which I kept under a cabinet with a child safety lock. I watched her jump up, grab her little paw on the edge of the cabinet, pull it out, and with the other paw, push it down so she could open the cabinet and get to the garbage. And it took me about 15 seconds that I let her eat the garbage because she earned it. And, you know, it was overwhelming just how intelligent she was and just how badly she really wanted that garbage. I don't recommend letting your dog eat garbage. So for every time they succeed at something, the more likely they're going to do it. But I'll tell you what, it was quite the thing to behold. And I never doubted her again that she was one of the most intelligent dogs in the world. Now, pit bulls. So pit bull energy can be incredibly overwhelming. They go from 0 to 1,000. They're like tapping on the gas with a Ferrari. And so as a result, they can deal with a lot of boredom really easily. So it's best to try to keep them not necessarily entertained, but able to harness their energy and exercised and things like that. And if they're not properly exercised and that they're not properly challenged, that's when you can start to see things like separation anxiety, destructiveness in the house, and just a general overexuberance, which is where like that jumping and the mouthing and some of the other naughty behaviors might show up. And so you've heard the old saying of a tired dog is a good dog, but I want to challenge that. I want you to start to think of it as a balanced dog is a happy dog. And so what I mean by that is it needs to be a balance of exercise and really using their brains. And so it's going to make them better able to cope with life. Okay, this computer. By the end of this, I'm going to understand what I'm supposed to do with the technology. Okay. So how much exercise should a pit bull get? Now, this is a very loaded question. So if you ask a lot of pit bull owners, they'll say they take their dogs for 2-mile runs twice a day or really long walks. Now, I want to caution you on over-exercising your dog. So the reason for that is there comes to be a certain point where it's no longer beneficial for them to exercise more. They're always going to want to keep going. Unless the dog is overweight or not doing well, they're probably going to keep pushing and pushing. And the only thing that's really happening at that point is you're building a marathon runner. So their endurance is going to go up. And so that energy level is not necessarily going to go down, which was the whole plan in the first place. And so as a result, you have to keep in mind your dog's capability, your own capability, and some other things that you can be doing instead. And so some of the things that we're going to talk about today are going to be, in addition to walks and running, just play in general, good types of play for your dog, and some mental games that will help to wear them out. Whoops. Apparently that one was duplicated. Oh, I went the wrong way. Going the right way helps. Okay, so every dog, as we discussed in the last webinar, they have different types of behaviors that are going to come more naturally. And so when they do these things, they get a nice kick of dopamine to the brain. Now, so for pit bulls, as we discussed earlier, they're going to have very high energy levels, and they're going to really like shredding stuff and grabbing onto things and shaking it, things like that. So if you notice that there's something that your dog tends to do that is naughty, find a way to integrate that into mental games and how to give them a positive outlet for it, because clearly it's something that they enjoy. So find a way to do it so it's not going to be destructive. Now, so if you're dealing with a dog that digs, look into creating a digging pit. So Ian Dunbar is honestly, one of the most foremost dog trainers in the world. So one of the things that he did was he took a giant bone. He went to a butcher and I think it was a deer leg, if I remember correctly, and he buried it in a giant hole and he let his dogs go. And his dog dug and dug and dug and dug. It took him days to get it up. And once he did, that was now the magic spot. So he was able to harness that dog's energy and keep it all in just one contained area. And so once he dug that up, he never put it back. But every dog he had after that was taught by the preceding dog that is the digging pit. And if you want to dig, you can dig there. Now, you don't have to bury a deer leg. You could bury a bone. You could just put a Kong in there once. And just like anyone who has walked a dog past a bush that he once found pizza in, that dog will check it for the rest of his life, because now that has become the magic place where that one time he found a piece of pizza. So if you put a bone into a hole, that will now become the magic place where once upon a time they found a bone, and just in case, every single time they're going to double check. You can also get a sandbox, or you can get something that simulates a sandbox, and you can just put things into it. And so like bury it in there. So bury some treasure and give them a reason to dig. And so if you don't want sand, and if you don't want dirt. What you can even do is take the fluff from all the dead toys that your dog definitely shredded. We all know that they did that. So take the fluff, put it into some type of a bin, and you can just toss some kibble in there and let them dig for it. And if that doesn't work for you, you can always take a handful of kibble, go to your dog's toy box and just chuck some kibble in there, and they'll have a grand old time searching for it. Biting. So biting is going to be something that a lot of us pit bull owners are very concerned about, because if they do bite, they can bite very hard. So there are some things that we can do to kind of harness that energy in positive ways. You can teach them tug. So tug is really great for pit bulls, and I'm going to show you a good video in just a minute of how best to play tug with the pit. And so the reason why it's so good is pit bulls naturally like to grab onto things and shake them. And the reason for that goes back to that history lesson that we were discussing last time, in which pit bulls like to grab a bull or another large animal, and they would just keep pulling until it fell down. And so this starts to really harness that natural urge to grab at things and to shake it. And it does it in a way that you're less likely to get injured. So chase games are really good as well. So if you have it like a flirt pole, you can get a pole and you can attach like a toy onto the bottom and give them the opportunity to grab it and to chase it. And so essentially what it's going to do is encourage the dog to focus that energy on that flirt pole, on the toy that is dangling off the end. I meant to get mine up, but it's somewhere out back since I just moved. So chase is a really good one. Fetch. Fetch will be excellent for biting because it's teaching them to put their mouth only on the things that you want. And so you can then toss it away and they'll bring it back, and they're less likely to really dig into it because you're playing fetch repeatedly. Toy switch. So if you have two identical toys, have them switching between the two. Have one be very lively and the other one you want to be dead. And so let them tug at one, and then you tell them switch, and you make the one that was alive before, you make it dead now, and you make that one very exciting, and you switch back and forth. And so pit bulls are very quick, and they're very quick-witted, and they're able to follow on things like this very easily. And it's excellent for really channeling their arousal levels. So chewing. This is going to be a very unpopular opinion for most pit bull owners, in fact, most dog owners. We as humans do not like when they shred stuff. Pit bulls love to shred things. They love to kill all their stuffies. I have gone through so many lamb chop toys in my lifetime. I try to only do it for holidays because it's just stuffing everywhere for like 2 weeks. You want to encourage that shredding behavior in positive ways. So if you don't want them shredding clothing or things that they find on the ground that they shouldn't have, give them things that they can shred. So one of the things that I like to do is I'll make up a Kong and I'll fill it with like a kibble mush. And so I just make a wet, I don't know, mush out of her kibble, and I'll stuff it with maybe some supplements as well as just like a tablespoon of wet dog food. And so I will put that inside of a cardboard box and I will close it, and Sammy has to chew through the side and she'll figure it out, and a lot of times she will shred it. I've also been known for putting a Kong inside of a Five Guys bag, so like a hamburger bag where it had all the really good oil on it, and you know, it has the fry flavor in it, and she will shred the heck out of that and then forget it was even there and just work on her Kong. And so she's able to release all of these like natural behaviors in a positive way as opposed to wreaking havoc on my life. And so Kongs. So Kongs are, if you're unfamiliar, oh, I don't have any handy. So it's like a rubber toy. You know what? I have one nearby. Hang on. Hi. Are you still working on this? Okay, just a minute. I'm going to give this back in just a minute so Sammy doesn't think that I'm really mean. But this is a Kong. And so what it is it's a rubber toy. And so there is a big hole and there's a small hole. And so what you can do is you can stuff a lot of really good food in there. For pit bulls, in the beginning, start with it still moist. But what you can do is you can then put it into the freezer, and then you can make it last a lot longer. Now, here you go. I actually prefer this kind. I couldn't tell you what the brand is, but it's like diamond shaped, and I like it because you can actually stack it on things, and it makes it easier to put in the freezer. Looks like it's Top Paw, so I think that's like Petco or PetSmart, something like that. Now, the thing with Kongs and really any type of food toy is you don't want to leave your dog with it alone the first couple of times, because especially pit bulls, they're very capable of like eating the Kong, and you really don't want that in their stomachs. That could potentially lead to blockage, which could cause you to have to go, have them surgically removed and all of that. So make sure you can trust your dog alone before you leave them with it. Always start out supervised. You can always do bones. So if you're going to give your dog a bone, make sure that, first of all, it's not a chicken bone. You want to look for bones that are not weight-bearing. So weight-bearing bones are going to splinter more. And make sure that your dog isn't able to splinter the bone. So there are a lot of different types of bones that I actually can't leave dogs with because I've actually seen them splinter them. So you don't want that in their stomachs again. That can be really bad. Bully sticks, which I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here. Bully sticks are bull penises. And so they can be quite long. And as Cheyenne's giggling. So they can be really good, and they'll keep your dog busy. Depending on the dog and how much they chew, it can last upwards of an hour. But for a lot of pit bulls, expect about 15 to 30 minutes. Do not leave them unattended with that. So once a dog has eaten a bully stick down to about here, you want to take it away. There are also these little like holders that you can put bully sticks into, and so it'll prevent the dog from eating that last bite, because that last bite can actually get into their intestines as well. And pit bulls are not necessarily known for chewing their food. They're very food motivated and very excited to eat. So you want to be very careful when it comes to things like that. Cardboard. Cardboard is fantastic for shredding. And like I mentioned before, I use it all the time. My Amazon boxes are like highly regarded in this house. And I'm going to show you a little video in a few minutes. Okay, so their energy is high. And so what we need to do is we need to find creative ways to use up that energy that is not going to involve going super overboard with it. They don't necessarily need to go for a 5-mile walk twice a day. You don't necessarily want the Usain Bolt of dogs in your house. You don't want to build them up where they have a very long endurance. Now, if you take them out hiking every single day, if that is something that your lifestyle can sustain, then maybe. But you want to entertain using different types of ways to use up their energy, because sometime maybe you're going to have a surgery and you're not able to walk your dog for 5 miles that day. You don't want to end up in the position where they're unable to channel their own energy. Some of the other things that you can do are nose games. So any game where your dog is sniffing or using their mouth is very good for them. Dogs are naturally scavengers. They enjoy going and sniffing things out. And as they are sniffing, their heart rate is actually going down. And so it's going to naturally start to calm them. So some nose games you can play. You can even just take some kibble or some treats and just scatter them out into the yard and let them sniff. Sammy, I like to play a game where I will scatter her kibble all through the house. And so she starts chasing after me, and while she's eating the kibble behind me, I'm sneaking off somewhere else and I'm hiding it in another part of the house. And it will take her, honestly, days to find it all. But that's mostly because she's kind of lazy. So yeah, that one's a really good one. There's different types of kits that you can get as well, scent kits. So you can hide things outside and have them come and follow you, or follow your scent trail. They're very good at identifying scent trails. And then last, wrestle. Get down with your dog and get to know them and play with them. If you have any type of physical limitations, do what you can. But the more your dog learns how to properly play, then the more they're going to start using that behavior in other areas in your life. Okay, so tug of war. Now, I know it seems really straightforward. You take a toy, you shove it in their mouth, and then you tug, and you just have a grand old time. But I'm going to show you some techniques for better tug of war. Let's see if it's...
So when you play tug, you want to pull and release. Pull and release. And each time you do it, pull with one hand, release, grab with the other. Nice. Oh. And with your pit bull, get an occasional head shake in. It'll encourage that behavior that they're already probably doing. Nice, good. Things to avoid when you're playing tug is picking them up and dangling them. Now, as much as pit bulls can typically handle that, you can break their teeth and you can pull them out. So you want to avoid that. Good work. Ready? Oh, get it. Now, tug is super important for pit bulls if your dog will play with you because it's using their natural behaviors. Get it. Of that grab and that shake. Yeah. And it will wear them out. Strong dog. Now, something else that's important with tug, you want to let them win. Oh, you're so strong. You're so strong. Get it. Oh, nice. You want to let them win because if you win all the time, then it's not fun anymore. What's the point of a game if they can never win it? Oh. And so, if you can, try to get down on all fours with your pit bull, as long as it's not going to be too much for them. And encourage that play bow stance. You've seen Sammy do it a couple of times. What on earth? That is a new technique. Get it, shake it. So this right here, if you can see, well, it was a play bow. And that is really good behavior to practice because that will encourage nice, better manners when playing with other dogs. Good girl. Now, something to bear in mind is if tug is hard for your dog, you want to bring their arousal level up, but don't let them go over threshold. Get it. Oh, that's a good bow. Good bow. So you want to bring them up, but before they get to the point that they're past the point of going over threshold, essentially like the point of no return, you want to bring them back down. Nice. Out. Good. Good girl. Get it. So something that's going to be really beneficial, woo, all right, is teaching them a solid out behavior or drop it. And the reason for that is it's beneficial both with ending a game, even if you play it without a couple of times, and then essentially give it back, start the game again, and then make them do out. Like, don't finish it on an out every single time. And it's also going to be beneficial, say for instance, you walk down the road, they find, in the case of Sammy, a Chick-fil-A container like we did this morning. Then if you teach them a solid out, then it's going to make that scenario much easier. And then so also in addition, work on switching. So with this, say for instance, if I had two different ropes, I could go back and forth between the two toys, teaching her to switch between them. And what that's going to help doing is to work on that trade and working on play with the toy that I think is important, not the one that you think is important. And so you can start to use that to your advantage. So to prevent resource guarding, working a lot with trades, give them something that's more important to them. So yeah, there you have it. That is tug. That is going to be absolutely critical for most of you. If your dog is anti-tug, it happens. Not all pit bulls are the same, just like not all Chihuahuas enjoy riding in purses. So Work with the dog that you have in front of you. For most of the pit bulls that I've come to know, any type of a game where they can grab onto something and shake the crap out of it, that's going to be a winner. So good luck, have fun, and talk to you in a minute.
Okay. So tug is a really good one, but just definitely be careful not to pull too hard. As much as pit bulls love to dangle off ropes with their entire body weight, you definitely want to be careful to ensure that they're not hurting their teeth too much. So another thing that we can do, so I love playing with cardboard, and if for no other reason than it gives me a reason to continue to order from Amazon so I don't feel like a horrible person. So Cardboard Chaos is a really, really good one, and you're going to get the first, like, whoops, wrong one, of my beautiful demo dog, Peach. Let's see if I can get it to load. I broke it. Oh, it doesn't want to do it. Okay. It might be because it's a longer video. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's just too long for this. Okay, so Cardboard Chaos is essentially you take a whole bunch of cardboard boxes and you can throw them on the floor and stack them in all sorts of fun configurations. And you can take treats and kibble and throw that on top of the cardboard and around it and all of that. I wonder if I can get it to load from here. Let me stop sharing here. Stop. Okay. And I will start sharing here. Video file. Oh, I think I did it. How's that for a resource?
A little bit different. We are going to play Cardboard Chaos. So I want you to save all of your cardboard boxes, all your Amazon delivery boxes, any type of delivery that you're getting, because your dog is going to love it. So what I have done is I have put boxes all over the place, and I've stacked them, and I put them in interesting ways, and I have sprinkled kibble and all sorts of treats all over the place. And what we're going to do is we're going to release Peach. Ready, break. And I'm going to let her sniff it out. So while she's doing that, I'm going to talk to you. So there are a lot of benefits to Cardboard Chaos. The biggest one being they get to use their nose. So for dogs, their noses are very, very powerful. If they can smell things, then their overall arousal level is going to come down. As a dog is sniffing, their actual blood pressure is decreasing. It's really fascinating. And so one of the things about dogs is that they're scavengers. They were meant to do this anyway. By stacking up all the boxes, you can work on a lot of different things. So you can work on their confidence. Confidence is a really big one. This is about the easiest win game that you can play. As long as they are not afraid to go near the boxes, they're going to win. All they have to do is sniff around and find what they want and really like follow their natural behaviors anyway. I got to keep an eye on her, make sure she doesn't do something too crazy. She is known for jumping on boxes because she's excited. And so some of the other things that it can do, it can teach grit. By grit, I mean the willingness to continue to try and solve a problem, even though it might be a little bit more difficult. It can teach them to be a little bit more tolerant of movement. So if your dog is afraid of things moving around them, you can start them out really easily. Take one box and maybe toss a couple pieces of kibble around it and then maybe a little bit inside and see how they do. Definitely don't start. This is advanced mode. We have been collecting boxes for a long time, and Peach has been playing this game for quite a long time. And so I don't mind challenging her of this. But definitely pay attention to your dog's abilities, both their physical abilities and their tolerance for different types of stimulus. So if they're nervous around new things, if they're nervous around any type of movement, that a girl, and that's why I keep an eye on her. Any type of movement, then you want to keep a very close eye on them. You only want to push them as far as they can go, and don't even push them that far. So if you think that they can only tolerate, 2 boxes, then maybe do 1 with a little bit of extra and toss a little bit more inside. If you think they can do 5 stacked all over each other, then maybe do 3 with only 1 stacked. You really want to give them as many easy wins as you can. You don't want to push it too hard. I think I covered all the points that I wanted to. So this is also really good if your dog is a little bit more pessimistic. So signs of pessimism would be they get really nervous in certain circumstances. Maybe they bark a lot, whether it's at other animals, other people going by, things of that nature. If your dog is a pessimist, they might struggle in a lot of different situations. Dogs tend to be pessimistic by nature. It's actually evolutionarily beneficial for them to be pessimistic. So really any dog would benefit from this type of a game. And so Cardboard Chaos in this particular configuration is really beneficial. If you want, you can make it more challenging, or you can change it up, and you can take kibble and put it inside 1 box, close that up, only make this as difficult as your dog can handle, and then maybe put that box inside of another box and maybe sprinkle some more inside in like a Russian doll type of a configuration. The more you change it up, the more your dog is going to be excited to play. Honestly, like with my dogs, this game never gets old. If we're having a tougher time, if I notice that they're getting a little bit more reactive or anything like that, what I'll do is I'll break out the Cardboard Chaos to really boost their optimism and boost their confidence.
Okay, how do I stop sharing it now? Okay. And go back to this. Share screen. Almost there. Okay, so another thing that you can do, this is a really good one. You can get snuffle mats. You don't have to buy a special one off of Amazon. I am not crafty, but if you go onto Pinterest, there's all different types of recommendations for snuffle mats. And so all it is a way to disguise kibble inside of something, and it gives them the opportunity to really sniff and use their nose. You can do the same thing by going outside and chucking treats into grass. That is the single least expensive toy you've got out there, if you don't count all of the different work that went into maintaining your grass. You can also just chuck kibble or treats into their toy bin. You really don't have to go super crazy with this. All right, so yes, snuffle mat is a very easy way to ditch the bowl. And so when I do the full course, I'm going to get all into ditching the bowl and all that good stuff. But needless to say, that's a really good way to exercise your dog's brain and sometimes even their body too. All right, so arousal. Now, it's not a dirty word in this context, so every dog experiences arousal. So events are stimulating the nervous system. It's going to really kick their fight or flight into gear. And so a lot of dogs are able to regulate themselves, and they're able to identify, okay, maybe that's not that big of a deal. That dog can walk by, no problem. Yeah, thanks for giving them a sneak peek. They're getting all this free material. They're not going to want to come back for the paid version in a year. That's okay. I'm giving it away for free anyway. yeah, so a lot of dogs are able to regulate that and able to perceive a situation as that's not even worth me paying attention to. So bulldogs and pit bulls, they're specifically bred to go from 0 to 1,000. They're that Ferrari that you barely tap the gas and they go vroom, right? So we have to pay very close attention to their arousal levels. Whoops. And so we need to help them regulate their arousal level. They are junkies. So for every single time their adrenaline kicks in and they go just pedal to the metal and go absolutely bananas past their threshold, they get a huge kick of that dopamine. They get so excited and it feels good and they want to do it again. And for every time they're able to practice that, it gets, they're more likely to do it again and again. And so it is on us to prevent that from happening. So the way that we can do that is to prevent overwhelming and problem situations. If you know that your dog is going to struggle with meeting new people, or perfect example is someone comes to the door. They do not need to meet you at the door and jump all over them. So what you can do is you can put them behind a gate, you can put them on a leash and have someone stand in another room and wait for them to be calm. Let the visitors come in and sit down and put them in a special place where the dog can't jump on them and be all crazy. And when the dogs have calmed down, you can then bring them in for a nice, relaxing, polite greeting. And so paying into what behaviors you want to see, some things that you can really practice is polite greetings. So if you have another person in your house or a friend, practice every time they walk up, your dog's butt hits the floor and they give a treat. And so if your dog does not sit down, then they have to wait until their butt hits the floor before they're able to get a treat, and just practice that. And so do that a few times, maybe have them, you know, before they walk up say, oh, can I pet your dog? And then you say yes, and only like let them make a big fuss after the dog has sat down. The more you pay into that, it's going to pay dividends, I promise you. So most of us focus only on sit. Think of it as for every time you teach something, you're putting a little quarter into a jar that is that behavior. And we only put it into the sit jar, but maybe there are other things like polite greetings that would be more beneficial. Okay, so prevent overwhelming problem situations. And so if for a lot of pit bulls, dog-on-dog play situations are going to be very challenging. Play or approach, things like that. So you want to prevent them from rehearsing bad behavior, and you want to teach them how to do good behavior. And the way you teach them is in your home, in safe spaces, and you practice, you rehearse. And then when you're able to take it outside, they now have some of the coping mechanisms to be able to do it in real life. Don't start in the situation. Otherwise, it just becomes very frustrating for them and frustrating for you, and it can actually damage your relationship with them. So say, for instance, you have two dogs that are playing and you notice that they start getting a little overexcited and they're taking things too far. Interrupt it. So don't let them get to the point that they can't come back from that. Like they go over threshold and it's the point of no return. So interrupt it, make them take some breaks. If they're starting to get a little over exuberant, maybe walk them over to the water bowl and just give them a minute to decompress, and then you can set them loose again. And we're gonna get into the bucket in just a minute, and so some things that you can watch for. But in short, set your pit bull up for success. If you set them up for success, they cannot fail. If you set them up to fail, then it's not going to be beneficial for them, and it's not going to be beneficial for you, and it can be damaging to your relationship. And at the end of the day, these are our friends. These are our family members. We want to make sure that everything is great, that our relationship is fun, and that, you know, they're set up for success. Okay, the stress bucket. So every dog has a, quote, threshold for stress. So you'll hear me talking about threshold, and what that means is the easiest analogy is they have a bucket. Every dog has a bucket. And in that bucket goes all different types of stressors, fun things. So eustress versus distress. So eustress is good stress, excitement, and maybe they saw their friend, they went for a car ride. Distress would be things like worrying situations, maybe a dog approaching, maybe someone made a really loud noise, they got yelled at, fear, pain, stomach issues, all of that pays into the bucket. And so when that bucket overflows, you might start to see some out of control behavior. This is where the dog has crossed over threshold. They're past that point of no return, and they start doing really squirrely stuff. So it could be barking, lunging, biting, zoomies, humping. They might be unable to eat or drink, and you might be calling them and they can't hear you. They have tunnel vision, tunnel hearing. Excessively rough play to the point they're starting to push aggression and action prompting. So maybe they're barking at you and you don't understand why. This is not a complete list. What it looks like is going to be different for every single dog. So what it looks like for your dog might be completely different than what it is for my dog. Some other things to look for: panting and just general really stressed out behavior. They could have, more of a tight body posture, any number of things. So really focus on your dog and your dog's mannerisms. And when you see this massive shift, that might be a sign that the bucket has overflowed. Oop, wrong. Okay, so what is happening? So every time something exciting or something stressful happens, there is a surge in the stress hormone, which is called cortisol. And it could just be a little bit, or in the case of pit bulls, it's going through the roof. So when cortisol goes up, so a really great demonstration of this is this over here. So it starts out a little bit, right? You pour a little into the bucket. They react to a dog. Maybe they see him walking down the street and they feel it's a little bit worrisome, or they're trying to be protective. And then maybe an hour later, they hear some kids playing, and maybe they're on the other side of the fence, and seeing them run back and forth and hearing them play is stressful for them. Or maybe they're just really excited. They want to be a part of the action. And then you take them on a car ride. You go to the park, and that was super exciting. And then all of a sudden, later that night, someone, bangs their hand on the table and the dog just loses it. They might start snapping, growling, whatever. They might even just start panting and just freak out in general. So once this happens, once this bucket overflows, this cortisol has just shot through the roof. After that has happened, it takes up to 72 hours for their cortisol levels to return to baseline. So for them to come back down. Now, for that to happen, all of those stressors, the good, bad, all of that, it would have to go away as well. So say, for instance, there's construction happening in your neighborhood and your dog is stressed out and their bucket starts to fill up. Until you find a way to control the situation so they are not being affected by that, it is still pouring into the bucket. And so now pit bulls are already on the edge. They are sensitive to motion. They are sensitive to these urges of arousal. They love living in this adrenaline-fueled state because that's what they were bred to do. And so it is on us to ensure that we don't allow their stress bucket to overfill. Okay, so before I go there, so I want to talk about riding the threshold think of it like riding a wave. So you need to teach your dog how to go up and down this arousal chain. So they essentially have a light switch. So they can turn on their arousal and they go 0 to 1,000 and they bring it back down and they're sleeping on your couch for the next 6 hours. So it is crucial that you teach your dog not to turn on the arousal as a light switch anymore, to tweak it almost like a dimmer switch. So you can turn it up and down. And the way that you do that is you practice arousal up to arousal down situations. And so some things that you can do is playing a game like tug is a really great one. So maybe they're just chilling out and then play a couple of, quick rounds of tug and then you let them chill out again. And so you just start messing with the dial a little here, a little there. Now, for a lot of pit bulls, they'll go from that 0 to 1,000 and they really struggle to come back down. So for dogs that do that, you only want to do like a quick 1, 2, 3 repetitions real quick. Don't go super crazy. No 20-minute play session if it really pushes them over the edge. Only take them as far as they can handle and then bring it back down. And when I say as far as they can handle, I mean don't go too far close to that threshold unless you know you can walk them back. Okay, so that takes me, it segues really nicely into walking patterns. So say for instance, you know that your dog is struggling with certain scenarios, you can actually use walking patterns to help bring them out of that. And so here we go. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. And so what I have here is Sammy is on a two-sided harness. So there is a clip in the front and there is a clip in the back. Ideally, you would have a two-sided leash, but if you don't have that, 2 leashes work, or a really long leash that you can attach to yourself. And so what you can do is you can start out relatively slow and you can work your way up, or in the case of a pit bull that's really struggling, start high. You want to start with that fast pace and you want to meet them and then you want to bring them down. And so you can integrate pace changes into the figure eights to help you do that. Now, zigzags are actually much, much better if your dog is struggling to come down from a hard situation. And so what you'll see is I'm going here and I'm going to zigzag, make a hard right, and I'm going to zigzag hard left. And you want to do this, start out really quickly. And the reason for that is it follows a dog's natural progression. If you see a dog that is zooming, they are zigzagging. They're making really hard turns. And Sammy does not like doing this, by the way. Her little legs just don't work well with this. I need a good one of a pit bull. So if anyone wants to take a video of their pit bull doing figure eights and zigzags, I would owe you forever. Okay, so zigzags are really good because you're using this state that they're already in. And so when they're moving really erratically, their brain's working really erratically, you can harness that. Start out moving really erratically, and then you can eventually move into those smooth figure eights and slow it down. Now, if you want to tweak that arousal up, arousal down, so you can start out relatively smooth if that's where your dog's head is at, and then speed it up so they think they're going to go somewhere good, and then you slow back down. And it's just tweaking that dimmer switch a little here, a little there. I would gladly take a video of Titus doing that. I feel like he can handle it better. Sammy goes, no, I will not walk any faster. Like she just wants to mosey. She's a mosier now. She's a country dog now. Go figure. Okay, so here's another really good one. Hang on, before we go. Oh. So, I don't know how to pause it. There we go. Okay, so so another game that you can play. So I want you to get creative as far as games that you can play with your pit bull. They love to play games. They are incredibly intelligent. So use those big, massive brains and their big, massive heads for your own benefit. Now I'm going to show you a really fun game called Name Dash. I didn't have much space in my yard to do this at the time, but you can get the idea really well. Okay, so Peach, you toss a treat, and then you're going to call, and then you're going to run the other direction, and then when they get there, you make a big deal out of it. And so part of the game, the reward becomes chasing after you, which is going to harness their love for running and their love for you and their love for food. So one of the things that you can do to reward them is when they get to you, you can have a toy. You can put it in your hoodie or in the back of your pants, or just have it generally ready, and you can reward them with playing with the toy when they do get to you. I wish I had more space in that yard so that you can see just how much she can unleash. That dog was a thing to behold. Okay, that is all I have for today. Are there any questions about pit bulls, raising pit bulls, training struggles? It doesn't even have to be about pit bull. We are here for you. Oh, No, we don't have a lot of viewers right now, but I know that people like to watch us on the replay. You are most welcome. This is starting to get into the part that I really like, is tapping into that crazy part of the pickle brain and using it for, I don't know, good, chaotic good instead of chaotic evil. Yeah. Okay. So since I have you, Cheyenne, I think you might be my only viewer at this point. People have been trickling in and out. What would you like to see?
What would I like to see?
Yeah. Left of her question.
I don't know. I love learning about pit bulls because I've never had a pit bull, and all I know is that they're crazy and they have really strong heads. So I'm learning a lot about pit bulls. I don't have any questions that I can think of.
Okay, yeah. So the next one, I think I'm going to cover aggression. It might not last the full time. And just to throw it out there, there will be trigger warnings. I think you're not going to be here next week, right? I think
Yeah, I'm not going to be here the next 2 weeks. Do pit bulls have a lot of like separation issues too?
They do. They do. So think of it this way, as like they're incredibly sociable. They want to be with their people, and they have all this extra energy. And so if they're not using that energy in positive ways, then they can really hyper focus on the loss of their human. And so that is actually a huge challenge for a lot of owners. Now, they can be fairly independent because they do have that terrier part in as well. Just kind of depends on their genetic makeup and nature versus nurture and all of that. But it can be a challenge, especially if they're not getting proper mental and physical exercise. And so a lot of times when you see people talk about like their challenges with their pit bull, it's because they ate their couches. Like it's terrible, but like I follow a bunch of different forums, and like you'll see pictures of a dog that chewed a hole through the wall. And you know, if you have that much strength and power and boredom and excessive amounts of energy, it can go really awry. So it's important to make sure that you're properly channeling both their mental and physical energy to keep that at bay. So if anyone who's watching, if you're dealing with serious separation anxiety challenges, call a professional. Like seriously, call a professional. The sooner you tackle it, the better, because then it only gets worse. So it's going to continue to escalate until it gets to the point where it's completely unbearable. Yeah. Chewing holes in walls is not fun. Is that Titus?
No.
The Pomeranian Chihuahua. Hercules, right?
No.
No. It must be a really tiny.
No, another dog. It's about the size of a Pomeranian.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny in a way, right? Like to see a dog chew a hole in the wall is just so shocking that you can't help but laugh. But at the same time, it's incredibly sad. So like what it is the dog gets so distressed they cannot handle their situation. And so it's really important to nip that one in the bud. And so there are people, there are certified separation anxiety behaviorists. So seek one of them out. They're the best people to help you tackle that. If it gets to the point of it's severe, if it's not severe, you can typically find a positive reinforcement trainer to help you with that and make things easier. So there was a question last time around about pit bulls with docked ears. And so I went back and I looked it up, and either it goes all the way back to Roman times because to make fighting easier and to prevent dog injury, or it's not. Like I could not track it down that there was no definitive answer that it was definitely because of dog fighting. It probably is, frankly. But it's possible that, you know, it might just be to look tough. I couldn't find the source all the way back in history. I tried. There's just so much bad information out there. It's absolutely astronomical. So like one of the myths that you see all the time is the nanny dog thing. And so what they say is, you know, I think it was around the time of the Depression is usually what people quote, is that, you know, people would go out and they would work in the field and they would leave their children to be babysat by the pit bull. That's false. That's absolutely patently false. But because it's such a great story, like we humans just keep perpetuating the same stupid story again and again. It's not stupid, but like, you know, and pit bull owners, like we want something to hold on to because they have such a bad reputation because of this arousal level and just the stigma that's out there against pit bulls. So that's a huge one. And one of the things I'm going to cover next week is about the pit bull bite, that they supposedly have a locked jaw, or, you know, the dog will lock their teeth on you. Literally cannot separate it. That's not true. They don't have locked jaw. There's no like little trigger in their jaw that you can turn on that locks it shut. And then the other one is that like they have the hardest bite impact of all dogs. That's not true. I think the Roddy does, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, it's crazy the amount of bad information out there, both for and against pit bulls, and both sides use it to their advantage in arguments on the internet. Basically, is what it comes down to. All right, it is 8 o'clock. I have talked for an hour straight. Thank you all for joining, either in person and the replay later. I am so happy that you decided to join me and learn a little bit more about pit bulls. If you have any feedback whatsoever, please feel free to reach out. I'm going to load all of my socials back up so that you can see how to reach me. Let me go all the way over to the socials. And so, yeah, and just reach out to me. You can send an email. You can send an Instagram. Instagram, I'm a little slow to respond because I don't understand the app very well. I'm terrible with Instagram.
Yeah, with the times.
I just don't get it. Like, I'll get a notification, but I can't find it. So, yeah, I need a tutorial for how to use Instagram. They changed the app like 2 years ago, and I think I got old in the course of a year where I was like, I don't understand this. I turn into an 8-year-old woman. But Facebook, email, you can go to my website. There's a contact form on there. I would gladly talk to anyone and let me know your feedback. What's good? What do you want to see improved? And if you have any questions about, so the Pity Pathways is a course that I'm going to be launching next year. I would love to hear feedback about what types of things you would like to see in it. What would be beneficial with regards to your pit bull? Okay, that was a lot of talking. I am going to go and eat some dinner and rest my voice. Thank you all for joining, and I will see you next week in the same bat time, same bat place. Take care and stay clever.